Hello everybody, I'm Isabelle Fayolle, I'm a journalist and we're here in Paris at Leonard for Building Beyond. Welcome to this new episode. Today, let's talk about critical raw materials and energy transition. Welcome, Aude Pommeret, nice to meet you. We are really lucky to have you on the set today for this interview. First of all, can you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you very much for the invitation. So I'm a professor in economics at Université Savoie, Mont, Blanc, and I'm also associate researcher in OFCE Sciences Po in Paris. I have been doing a lot of research on environmental economics so far, and I'm also doing some consulting for the administration of the Prime Minister in France, so namely France Stratégie, and now it's called HCSP.
When people think about climate change, they think about electricity generation, but there are other challenges. Which ones?
Yeah, there are other challenges related with electricity generation and climate change. Probably the first one you can have in mind is intermittency. So when you generate electricity in a renewable way, you don't have it all the time. You cannot decide when you're producing it. And there can be mismatches between production and the demand for this electricity. Another challenge is that it's not very easy to have people accept the environmental policy you need in order to implement this renewable energy generation. So in particular, to make it simple, people like subsidies and they don't like so much taxes that we can show are a lot more efficient to actually make the transition happen. And there is a third one that is in some way a little bit more recent, that is related to critical raw materials. The fact that if you want to have renewable energies, you have to build infrastructures like solar panels, like windmills, and inside this infrastructure you have this critical raw material appearing. And in some way what is interesting is that you have like a move of scarcities. We started in the 70s with some scarcity with fossil fuels. And then we had another type of scarcity that was related to carbon budget, that's the climate change issue. We cannot emit as much carbon as we want. And then we had the idea, okay, let's go for renewables. Okay, that's going to solve this issue related to carbon budget. And then going for renewables, we are now facing another new type of scarcity, which is related to critical raw materials. The fact that you need these materials that are present in finite quantity inside this infrastructure for renewables.
Can you give us a few examples of materials?
This is really because of the transition that critical raw materials started to matter. So really the EU wanted to have an important position in the transition and then show that it implied having also a very good position in critical raw material access. For instance, if you look at rare earth, it's planned to be multiplied by 6. I'm speaking about the demand for this material because of the energy transition by 2030 and multiplied by 7 by 2050. And then if you think about lithium, for instance, it's even more. It's multiplied by 12 by 2030 and multiplied by 21 by 2050. So that's really huge quantities. And initially, it's geologists that did these predictions regarding how much we need these materials to manage with the energy transition. So that was really the big issue. And interestingly, so the issue was more, we're afraid we're going to have too much demand and we are not sure that the supply is enough in the ground. And then it switches. It switches at the time of COVID and also because of the Ukrainian war. So then at this time we were thinking, okay, maybe we may have enough inside the ground, but there is still a problem on the side of the supply more than on the demand, which is related to the fact that we have geopolitical issues now, and these critical raw materials, they are not spread evenly on the planet. Now, rather than being an issue of we're going to have too much demand, the issue is much more, we may have some issues regarding the supply.
So now the question has changed. Where
Yes.
are on the Earth the critical raw materials?
Exactly. And one relatively natural consequence is that now we are asking this very bizarre question, I think, for this century, which is, shall we open mines in Europe? Okay,
Is it a brand new question?
I mean, yes.
Here in Europe?
Yes. I mean, we were more in the trend of
Yeah,
shutting
yeah,
down
yeah.
everything. I mean, and having these very dirty things done
Yeah.
far away. Okay. And now we are thinking, yeah, maybe we should open mines in Europe and maybe we should open mines in France. So we are currently considering that.
So what are the plans in the future to open mines in Europe?
So there are currently, I think, 47 projects inside Europe, and they cover a lot of this critical raw material from copper, nickel, lithium, these rare earths we were speaking about earlier. So just to make it clear, by the way, critical raw material, so they encompass the rare earths. Rare earths are part of these critical raw materials, and also in the official list of the EU, what they call strategic critical raw material are also inside this critical raw material official list.
Like cobalt, lithium, and
Yes,
the
exactly.
example that you gave before. It means that Europe is supposed to have clear plans, maybe to open new mines here in Europe.
Yeah, there are clearly plans. So your EU is planning to open 47 mines. I mean, there are 47 projects currently. And the way EU is trying to make that happen is to try to make it easier, in particular in terms of all the administrative process, trying to speed up the process on this side. But at the same time, opening mines in EU is quite special compared to open it in developing countries, for instance, as it is a lot currently the case. I mean, you can have mines in Canada, you can have mines in Australia, where things are done in a clean way. But then, because we're going to do it in a clean way in the EU, it's going to take a lot of time. You need people to accept to have the mines, and you need to be sure that it is done in a proper way with the environment.
It means that it can be longer, more expensive if
Exactly.
we want to make it clean.
That's exactly the two dimension. It's going to be longer, and it's going to be a lot more expensive. And it's actually the reason why it's not happening, because currently the price of critical raw materials is still relatively low. We know that it's going to increase at some point when we actually lack of it. Okay, so when at some point there is an increase in demand and the supply is not following, then you're going to have an increase in the price. But right now it's not happening. So it's not providing the suitable incentives for opening the mines in EU. So this is where we have a mismatch. This is where we are a bit stuck currently.
What should be the right public politics for this?
Yeah, so it exactly raises this issue. I mean, we have the feeling that it should be happening and it's not happening. So maybe there is a role for public policy here. There could be the industry first expecting that there will be a rise in price. And even if it's not already happening, based on this expectation, already investing. But still, I mean, we can identify some market failure that would justify public policies. Okay, so if the market is not doing the job properly, then we can have public policies entering. So the first one would be the fact that there is an issue with the environment. So we are not sure if the industry is just doing that on its own, that it's going to be happening in the way we want it to be happening. And also there are limited quantities. So we have an issue with scarcities. Even if we open mines in France, for instance, there are not infinite quantities. So these two dimensions actually could require that we tax extraction, or maybe we regulate when we think about the environment. So this is clearly not what the industry is expecting and looking for regarding public policies. Okay? What they would like is that there is investment, that there is support, that actually the state is helping. So tax would not do the job, and regulation neither. So that's the first point. Then regarding to the kinetics that we were discussing earlier, then in this case, that could also justify some public policy. I mean, the fact that it takes time, the fact also that you have some asymmetry. When you have a rise in the price of the critical raw material, then it takes time for the investment to happen because you need to find the funding, because it takes time to implement. But then if you have a fall in the price of the critical material, then the investment stops immediately. Okay, so that's very asymmetric. So here you could also have some help, some what we call macroprudential policy. So that would be on the financing side coming from the public policy. And the last one would be, well, maybe we think that there is a strategic matter here, that we really want, for a strategic reason, not to have an issue with the availabilities of these critical raw materials. So then that would justify policies, that's the ones we actually hear about when you have the state, as a public policy, buying critical raw materials when the price is going too low. So that would have two nice effects. The first one is that you make stockpiles, okay, and then you are ready in case you have a shortage. And at the same time, it sustains the price. So it prevents the price from going too low, and that's providing an incentive for opening mines.
What are the main points to remember about the critical raw materials to accelerate, to speed the green transition?
The first thing would be not to forget about them when you think about the energy transition. So if you think that you're going to make an energy transition and that you're not have any constraint coming from the critical raw material, then you're going in the wall. So that would be the first one. And then the second one would be to clearly identify where the market failures are in order to design the proper public policy. Because I think there is a lot of lobbying coming from the industry, and part of it, I mean, probably we can identify market failures, but we have to be very careful on the way we design the public policy on that matter.
Thank you very much, Aude Pommeret. It's very clear and passionate, interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.